I got on now perfectly well with my former manager, Dennis Smith, who I've seen several years ago. And when we had a brief conversation, ironically enough, at St James's Park, as we were both there working in media, one of the points he did make was that he was to some degree resentful at so many people coming and approaching him, insisting that I should play in the first team a lot more than what I was at the time. And I think his attitude was one of annoyance that so many people that he would perceive as not having an understanding of the game, and particularly the growth of young players, were trying to impress upon him that I should be playing week in, week out. And this was coming from members of the press or supporters, or indeed members of the board at the club. But I do think that he should have been perhaps mature and experienced enough to know that that shouldn't then be taken out on me as an individual. And as you rightly say, particularly as a young player who's still very much finding his way in the professional game. And there was times that I was fully deserving of, some overzealous remarks from him or other coaches. But equally on other occasions, I was subjected to what I felt and still do to be humiliating comments in front of people that were never, ever going to prove productive and never, ever going to get me to try to perform anywhere near my optimum. I mean, when I look back now, when I used to run out the tunnel and hear maybe like 25,000 people chanting Kieron as an 18-year-old, that is incredibly inspiring, because it's not often that teenage footballers, regardless of how well they're doing, become such a firm favourite at that particular stage of their career. And I have eternal, endless gratitude for the way the Sunderland supporters and broader public took this young boy to their hearts. And yes, there's some regrets that it didn't last longer than I had initially envisaged. But again, I got 5 years doing something that I know that you, Jack, or countless others who are listening to this would love to do just once.
Yeah.
So who am I to be embittered about what has went before when I've done something that so many people would love the opportunity to do in a very fleeting moment?
Yeah. Just with you mentioning there some comments or whatever that maybe you might have discouraged you, was there anything in particular regarding that was like maybe more impactful than anything else?
To be honest, there was several. And I recall one day when the team weren't playing well at Roker Park and I was a substitute, and we were part of the way through the second half, and the supporters were chanting my name, obviously to encourage the management to bring me on. And within moments of them starting to chant my name, the manager or coach turned round to me and says, "Don't think that I'm going to put you on just because these are all chanting your fucking name."
Yeah.
Which I found to be incredible. It wasn't my fault or responsibility that the players were underperforming that day. At this stage, I was a teenage player. And if you disregard the fact that I was a footballer, I was a teenager. I'm still very immature in so many respects. And yet here was I, in one regard, being held culpable almost for what was unfolding on the field. And there were several other instances similar to that, sometimes in front of significant numbers of people. And it just made the relationships that I had with the management and the coaching staff continuously fractured. And although there was brief moments where there seemed to be some evidence of a respite, it didn't sustain in any way. And it got to the point that I felt that my footballing future might be best served away. And when I asked for a transfer, I was told in no uncertain terms that I would be allowed to leave. But equally, I was humiliated in front of the first team squad for taking a good result that they'd had down at Portman Road against Ipswich, potentially off the back pages because I had asked for a transfer. And there's little things like that that certainly at the time aggrieved me in a hugely significant manner. And perhaps we're doing damage to the relationship that I had with the management and coaches. So that, I suppose, for some people, that's just the nature of football, and you always are going to have to expect to be forcefully treated if you're not doing things that you're asked to, or if it's felt that you're not putting the maximum effort in physically and mentally. And to that end, I accept criticism. But there was certainly some things that I felt that were way too personal. And as I said, were not conducive to creating a harmonious relationship between the broad management and myself.
When a manager comes across as quite authoritative, or maybe isn't coming across as friendly as you would like, do you think that at all discourages you, your motivation to play for them?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, it's easy now again to say in retrospect, but in an ideal world,